Oh, we should have gave her that.
All right. My name is Wendy Thomas, and this is for my motivation speech, my motivational speech. And what it's about is how we need more interpreters, sign language interpreters in general, because we don't have enough, and we are really shorthanded with interpreters. So it is a very serious issue, and for example, what people need interpreters for, it's not just for deaf, it's for hearing people too, so that way those two can communicate with each other. Like if, for example, when they go to the doctor's office and there's no interpreter, and the deaf person has no clue what's wrong with them, and they're just taking all this medication and just taking it because the doctor said so. And all this time, they might have been taking it for years because there's no interpreter, and now they're finally trying to figure out what's wrong with them. And from no interpreter. So of course, when there's no interpreter, there's miscommunication, and when it comes to miscommunication, of course, that leads to misunderstanding. So of course, that's pretty frustrating on the deaf person for sure, because they have no clue what's going on. So for a person to know sign language, I think that makes a really big impact on the deaf community, because it's already very rare that that people know sign language, even though it is starting to branch out more, which is a great thing. But it would be, of course, in a fantasy world, everybody would know sign language and everybody can communicate with each other, but that's not the case. So of course, I try to encourage people to just learn even your alphabet. That makes a huge difference too. Just learning how to communicate with each other makes a difference. And even family members that have deaf members in their family, 90% rate is that those people, the hearing people, they don't know how to communicate with their deaf family member, which is frustrating, because can you imagine growing up your whole entire life not being able to communicate with your parents, and then whenever you are of age, you finally, you could be 30, 40 years old, and you finally figure out what's going on because you're talking to your family through an interpreter. So, I mean, that's already kind of frustrating enough. And and then also knowing or learning sign language, that helps break communication barriers. See, a lot of people don't realize that, well, hearing people think it's just for deaf. Like I said at the very beginning, it's for hearing too. It's just that it just breaks a lot of communication barriers. It's important. And plus it gives you a sense of pride whenever you're able to talk for yourself through an interpreter. Even it is through an interpreter, but still at least you can have that mode of communication with somebody. And plus it gives them a sense of independence. And it creates empowerment, because there's so much disempowerment these days, and it's where you don't give them that option to speak for themselves. And but having an interpreter, you can. And also, some people think that if you have an interpreter, just because a person knows sign language, that they can be an interpreter. That's not true. That person has to be qualified and preferably be certified. But don't just grab anybody to be an interpreter for this deaf person just because this person knows their alphabets and you're in a doctor's office, and that's a big deal. Yeah, again, it can lead to miscommunication and misunderstanding. What my vision is to create more awareness for the deaf community, just so that way people are more, just more understanding in a sense. I guess that's a better word I can come up with right now. Just to help, would like to help educate others on the importance of having a sign language interpreter and hearing consumers. And there's just many benefits to knowing sign language. I don't know, it's just rewarding. And whenever I go, I'll just give a really quick story about like my mother. I know I keep using my mother. The reason why I say it's very important to have an interpreter is back then, whenever she had 3 children before me, she was going through court, and the interpreter was saying everything opposite of what the judge was saying. So her life was on the line. This is her children we're talking about. And so the interpreter keeps asking my mom, does she want to stay with her abusive husband? And if she does, then she can keep the kids. And if she doesn't, they will take the kids. If she decided to leave him, then they would take the kids away and put them in a different home. So of course my mother, kept nodding her head. She was like, yes, yes, yes. She'll stay with her husband, because that was the only way that she could keep her kids. Well, come to find out, it was a total opposite. The judge said, if you stay with your husband, you will lose your children, and if you leave, you can keep your kids. So that's where the importance of an interpreter is, because that was back in the 70s. So there's who knows what that person's qualification skills or what that skill level was at that time, and but that's a huge mistake. And just one more quick story. And one more quick story. There was a deaf man that was in the hospital, and he was already terrified that he was getting surgery done. So he's relying on the interpreter. The doctor or the nurse is telling him that they're going to put an IV needle in his left arm. And so here he is. He's already got himself worked up, and he's ready for that needle to be put in his left arm. But then when they go put it in his right arm, he's terrified. And so of course he's a little upset, and he asks the interpreter, why didn't you tell me they were going to put it in my right arm? I'm already freaked out, and here, thinking it's my left. I'm preparing myself, and they did something else, and the interpreter just thought it was no big deal, and was like, well, what does it matter? You're getting an IV in your arm either way. But still, it's just knowing those little bitty things, even as hearing people. I mean, they would like to know what the person's going to do. I mean, especially if you're in panic mode. But anyways, moral to the story is that I would love to encourage people to be more open-minded when it comes to trying to learn sign language or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's a start, American Sign Language, and that's it.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, so what was the big deal about the sign language? The interpreter saying your right and it was your left. I mean, he was getting stuck with regardless. He's gonna get stuck by it.
That is true. But if you're already terrified and you're terrified of needles, so you've already worked yourself up and you're like, all right, it's going in the left, and then now it's going in the right. It's just little things
it really makes a difference, because the other day I went to go get my blood work done. They can't draw blood out of my right arm good.
We do it anyway.
No.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to get the blood. He done stuck me twice. And I already told him they always get it from the left and it comes like that. But he say they supposed to do it out of your right. The lady come in and she say, Ruby, which one? Here, because that's where he gonna get, because he couldn't do it here. He had to go get somebody else. He got it like that but I'm listening to him. And I done got stuck in this arm too.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. And I ain't talking thinking Miss Thomas is crazy. But it did make a difference with the man saying.
Yeah.
When you say left and he prepared.
Right.
Because I don't look. And then there you go. And I don't never do that. I do the left.
See, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it makes
especially when you're going in surgery and you're about to be knocked out, and you're already scared of that already, and then for that interpreter to just make that one thing, then yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I mean, I can pretty much see how with I would just say that was a really good example that you gave with the court. Just the miscommunication between an interpreter and in court, just the miscommunication in court was the difference between you having your kids and you not having your kids, just because you couldn't understand what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, but of course they do. Wasn't everything written down? You can read it.
See, that's what people fail to realize is that American Sign Language, they have a whole different. It's like Spanish.
Like
you know how their words are backwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's how it is with American Sign Language, especially if that's what you.
So if she would have read what the court actually was telling her, it would still kind of be confusing to her.
Right.
Even though she read it, clearly read it, but you have to kind of flip flop it for her because she's. Yeah. Okay. So because she's been taught different.
Right. And then you have to have somebody to actually interpret that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
One more question?
I think that's it.
Is it hard to learn the sign language?
It's hard for me to answer that question because they say that sign language is one of the hardest languages to learn.
Okay.
It's hard for me because that was my first language.
Okay.
So,
Okay, ask me this question. Suppose you learned your alphabet, but you can't spell. So what you gonna do?
I highly suggest you get a dictionary.
No, I mean, do people actually know how to do the alphabet but can't spell? So
Yes, all the time.
So you got people
All
doing
the
sign
time.
language can't spell.
All the time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All the time.
Okay.
That's it.
So you're trying.